So now we got our data set cleaned up. Let's go ahead and build a logistical regression model. And then we're going to score and evaluate it. So we have our clean data. We're going to go ahead now, and we're going to select the fields that we want to build our model out of. So our model is going to show us, we want to pull in everything. We're just going to say, hey, we're going to use everything in our model to pull in the data. So we're going to go and click on the select columns in the data set. And the selected columns are basically it's like doing a select statement in SQL. We're just going to pick everything and put it in there, except for one thing. We're going to remove the customer ID. The customer ID is not really going to help us identify what could be thrown in the model. So we're going to remove that from the model, and we're going to bring everything else in. So as you can see, the selected columns excludes the customer ID. When we've excluded it, we can hit the check mark, and we're done. Next thing we can do is we're going to now go ahead and start looking at splitting our model into a testing and a training data set. So what I'm doing on the left-hand side, I'm not even bothering going through and looking for the fields. I'm just typing in the search engine split, then I'm pulling in the data, the node that I want. So I'm going to split the data into a 70-30 data set. So 70% of the data will be used for training the model, 30% will be used for testing it. And I'm using a random 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to keep this splitting consistent. When I do that down the road again for another model, I want to that you'll understand more why that is being done. Next thing I do is once I split the model is I want to take that training data set and I want to actually train it. Very straightforward. So I'm just going to take the 70% and connect it to the training model. And then I just wanted to show you there, it tells you green is where it can be connected and the red is where it cannot be. The logistic regression model is the one we want to use. So we're going to type that in, and I'm going to just type in logistic regression. And then it says there a 2-class logistic regression. That's the one we're going to use. I'm going to pull that one in, and I'm going to make that be the model that we're going to train our data on. I'm not going to change any parameters right now. I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible. Now you do notice we have a red dot next to the train model, and that's because we still haven't specified what parameter it is that we're going to test for our target. And that one is going to be the churn model. So the last thing I'm going to bring is I want to score the model and connect it to our training data set. And then I'm going to go ahead and change the, or connect the 30% to the score model. And then I'm going to go ahead and value the required value for the training model is going to be the churn. So that's the last thing that is red. I'm going to type in just churn, and it'll know that that's the column in the field that I want. And then I can click on it. And if I try to click on a second column, it's going to tell me that you can't do that because only one field is possible for the target. So we're pretty much done at this point. We have a model, we have scored it. We do want to evaluate it though. So we want to evaluate how well it's done. So we're going to go ahead and pull in the evaluate the model and connect it to the score. And we can do either one right now. I'm just going to pull it on the left node, and we have our model. We've built our logistic regression. We've trained it. We've scored it. Now we just need to go to the bottom, and we're going to run it. And you get this little nice swirly guy that Azure gives us. And on the top upper right, it tells us that it's running. We should get a check mark when it's run, finished. And we should get all check marks. And we do, which is a good sign. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and see how did our model do. First, let's go back to our training model, and let's right-click on it, and let's see how our data was split up. Since we've trained our model 70-30 split, our training model should be about 4,900 records. And then we could see in our training model that the featured weight, the tenure, was the highest contributor to the churn. And it gives us all the weights of all the different fields as indicators. So this kind of gives us a high level in terms of what did our model find were the biggest contributors. Now we can look at how our data was split. So we had 70% of the 7,000 records. So we had about 4,900 records that were used to train the model, which is a good sign. And for our testing data set, we should have about 2,100 records are going to be used for our testing. So that number 2,113 you want to keep in mind because that's what we're going to be used to evaluate our score. Now we go to the score of the model, we right click and we visualize that data, and we can see that it's going to show us that the visualization there is how well did the actual score come close to the real score. So what we can see now is that our churn for the first one was a no, and our score label was a no. So that's a hit, meaning that that we were able to accurately predict that. And then we can go down, and then we get to about the sixth one, we see that we actually incorrectly predicted that one. So that's kind of a row by row level of how well we did. To evaluate the model, we can right click on it and we can see how overall we performed on a summary basis. And when we go and visualize that, we can see that this is our area under the curve. This is our true positive rate versus our false positive rate. The longer the curve, the better. If it's a straight line, then that means it's a completely random model, which is not good. So our accuracy for this model was about 79%, which is not bad. 80% is, where you kind of want to be at. So we're at 79%. We're just throwing the model, all the variables in, and the area under the curve is at 83.6%, which is going back to that curve on top. You want that curve to have as much area underneath it as possible. The better that curve is, the bigger that curve is, the better your model is. This is going into the precision, and the lift is basically measuring the true positives against the number of true positives against the positive rate. So that curve also, you want it to be high. So we're pretty much done with this model. We've created a model, but a model is only as good as the amount of time you put into it. What we want to do next is we want to say, let's compare that model to another model. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our logistical regression model and we're going to put it on the right-hand side. And we're going to say, that's one model that we built with a logistic regression. Let's find another classification model and compare the two and see which one does better. We could have gone back to that original model and tweaked it, but we can also run another model side by side. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to split the data set again into a 70-30 split. I'm going to give it the same randomness of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 so that it randomizes the data the same way as the first one. And I'm going to connect the data set into that second split data. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to search for the train model again so we can train that model as well. And pull that in there on the bottom. I'm going to connect it to the testing data, which is the 70%. And then I'm going to pull in the decision forest model. So I'm going to type in decision, and then I can go there and I see in my classification I have a 2-class decision forest model. I want to pull that one in. I'm not going to make any parameter changes. I'm going to make this very high level. We're just going to let this machine do as much work as possible. So I'm going to connect it to the training model, same as we've done before. The last thing we need to pull in, we do have that we want to specify that column as churn that we want to measure. We're going to go ahead and click it again. So now we're both measuring churn for both. And then we want to go ahead and score this model to see how well the 70% did with the 30%. So we're scoring that model. We're going to connect it now to the trained data set. And we're going to connect it to the 30% that we want to test it against. And then the nice thing is here, we don't have to create another evaluation model. We can just connect to the original evaluation model. So this node at the bottom is going to evaluate model 1, logistic regression, versus model 2, decision forest. And now that we have that, we're pretty much done. I'm just going to give you kind of an overview of what the model looks like. It looks like it would be something messy, but we created it step by step, and we're going to go ahead and run the whole thing. And we get Azure's nice little swirly face to let us know the model is running. And we're going to get our timing on top. The model is executing. It should be done pretty quickly. It is finished. We have all check marks. We can now go in and look at the scored model for both of them and just confirm that both have 2,113 records. So we're going to look at the one on the right, which we looked at before. We have 2113. That's good. That means we have the same records for testing. On the left-hand side, we're going to go do the same thing for the churn model for the decision forest. We're going to look at that score set. We're going to visualize it, and that one also has 2113. That's great. Now we want to get to the juicy part. We want to see how well did the second model compare to the first model. The first model, since we did it, is going to be in blue. The second model is going to be in red. So when we right-click and visualize that one, we're going to go and see how the two did. And it looks like the blue model, the first model, slightly overperformed the second model. So the second model, the first model was, remember, 79.4% with an 83.6% area under the curve. The second model, when we click on the red, which was the decision forest, that one was at, looks like it's at 77% with a 78% area under the curve. So slightly less than the first one, but not by that much. You could probably tweak the second model and maybe get a better version than the first one, but you could have also done the second, tweak the first one as well. You can also look at the precision and see how the first one was a little bit more precise for a longer period of time over the second one. Blue meaning red, I'm sorry. And then you can also look at the lift to understand how the number of true positives compare to the actual, the false positives. And the blue one slightly overperforms or overachieves against the second model as well. Now, we have these two models with the data set out there. We want to export these data sets. We can right click on each one and click on Save as Data Set. And just like we got data imported in, we can export this data out to be used for consumption and something else within Azure. So I'm gonna export these two as and give them a name. The first one is going to be churn with logistic regression. And then I'm going to right click on the second score model, and I'm going to export that one and call that one churn with decision forest. Once you have those written out, you basically just give it an, go ahead and hit the check mark, and you'll see at the bottom left, it will be saving the immediate output, and then you'll get 2 check marks there to let you know everything is good. You can close that. And then you go to where you started initially. We started at the data set level. We will see that original data set on the left-hand side in the toolbar. And now we're going to see under the data sets, we're going to see our 2 churn models. Those can then be saved, and they can be exported into a project by going to the bottom right and click on Add to Project. And those projects can then be added to workspaces within Azure that can be used for future stages of development. And that's a little bit of a tease as to what we'll be doing within the next couple of webinars, which will be focusing on visualizing the models within some of the tools within Microsoft Azure, as well as being able to productionize these models and doing live analysis on customers that have not yet even come in. So this could be used for customers who are looking to be prospective media or purchasers of media content.